Welcome, and this is video number 3 in a 3-part series about the real estate market cycle. In the first video, I talked about the 4 different phases: the peak cycle, the recession cycle, recovery, and then expansion. In the second video, I talked about how to invest in each of those different phases of the cycle. If you haven't checked out those videos, you may want to check them out somewhere in these 2 areas right here. In this video, I'm going to talk about how to prepare for the next phase while you're in one of the other phases. A lot of times being prepared for that next phase is more critical than how to invest in any given phase. Okay, I'm going to assume that you've watched the other 2 videos I pointed out. You have, right? Honey, I don't think all of these people have watched the last 2 videos. What is she saying? Oh well, it's your loss. Let's get moving. So I'm going to start this third video the same phase I started the previous 2, and that's going to be the peak phase. This is going to be where you're going to need to prepare for the recession that comes after a peak. This is probably the most critical phase to prepare for, because it's going to come on fast and it's going to come on hard. Are you ready? So at the peak phase, you're going to want to sell, sell, sell. That is, you're going to want to sell the properties you don't want to keep for probably another 5 to 7 years, because the market's going to dip, it's going to hit bottom prices, and you're not going to get top dollar for these properties. So if you have underperforming property, if you have property you just plain don't want to keep that long, maybe something that's just kind of breaking even, now's the time to sell. Now maybe you have a property that you don't necessarily want to sell, but you have a balloon payment, and typically that's where you still have a large chunk of money, but the bank requires you to refinance it. Well, if you try to do that in the next phase, your property may not appraise for what it needs to in order to refinance that. And that's where a lot of people lost their properties in the 07-08 crash, because they had to refinance their properties and they couldn't. So you're going to want to make sure that you have a long enough range in your loan. And I'm going to recommend at least 5 years at this point, more like 7 to 10 years, that you won't have to refinance that, because when the market dips, your rates are going to increase at the same time, and it's going to take a while for those rates to come back down. So make sure you have that prepared. Now's also the time to start collecting funds, start getting cash, selling your properties, holding on to that money, make relationships, figure out how you're going to finance the next 1 to 2 phases in all the purchases that you're going to make. You want to prepare now for when the markets turn. This also goes for lines of credit. You're going to want to get lines of credit set up now, because when the market turns, you're not going to get that line of credit. So maybe you want to do a home equity line of credit. Get that set up now, because now's the perfect time. If you're a flipper, at this point you want to make sure that you're not over leveraged. As I would say, be gone. You're going to want to flip with extreme caution at this point. You're going to want to make sure it's in the best areas. You're going to want to try to do quick flips, but you're also going to prepare to hold it for a long time while you're trying to sell it. And you want to have multiple exit strategies, as I talked about in my previous 2 videos. If you can't flip that property, can you turn it into a rental and keep it until times turn around? If you're a buy and hold guy or girl or whatever, you're going to want to make sure at this point you're stress testing your deals. Everything that you buy, you're going to want to make sure it's going to be able to perform. I talked about in the previous video, you want to make sure you can perform under lower rents, On top of having higher vacancies, this is the time to prepare not only the stuff you're buying, but your current portfolio. And if it doesn't meet those qualifications for you, sell it now. I'll have a whole nother video on how to stress test your deals, so keep an eye out for that. This is also a great time to maybe convert some of your rentals or buy rentals for student housing, because in a downturn, student housing enrollments actually increase. And that's more than likely people trying to better themselves and get a better career, or maybe people are just bored in the downturn. They don't know what to do. Whatever that reason is, historically, it has been proven that student housing is great in a downturn. So the next phase that you're going to be in is the recession phase. And if you still have some loose ends and you feel like you're in the recession, but loose ends from your peak phase, at the very beginning, you can possibly still sell some of these properties, but you're going to need to do it quick. You're going to want to keep continuing to increase the amount of cash you have on hand or the amount of financing that you have access to. Those deals are coming around in this phase, but in the next phase, they're going to be more than you can count, more than you can finance, and you're really going to have to be selective on what deals you choose at that point. You might even want to consider getting your realtor's license at this point. And I say that because as these deals are coming on the market, having access to the MLS and that one leg up on your competitors to get to that deal, you're going to be able to find the deals, the better deals, quicker and faster if you have access to the MLS. So getting your license at this point is a fantastic opportunity. And also preparing to find those deals on the MLS, you also want to familiarize yourself with the auction processes, whether that's online, down at your county courthouse, whatever that auction process is, they're going to be all over the place. So if you're already familiar with it, you're going to start seeing those deals now, but it's really going to flood in the next phase. Also, if you don't have relationships with contractors, now is a fantastic time to do it. No matter what type of investor you are, the contractors are starting to gear up. So as you get relationships with them, you may be top of mind and priority when you need them in the coming years, months, whatever that may be. Are you prepared for the next phase? Well, what are some things that you do to prepare and not get caught off guard? Also, I don't want you to get caught off guard and forget to smash that like button. So our next phase is the recovery phase. Our next two phases, the recovery and the expansion, are going to account for the longest time frame of the cycle, and it's often hard to distinguish the two from each other. Sometimes people even consider them as one phase within themselves, but there are distinct things to do in each different one to prepare for the next one. So as I mentioned in the previous phases, and really this goes for all the time, it's building relationships. Now you want to build relationships even more than ever, and you want to prepare to sell to the flood of investors coming in the next phase. So maybe you're picking up property very cheap that you can sell for 50%, 100% of what you're buying it at this point in 2-3 years from now when there's a huge competition for deals. And if you're growing your business in the recovery phase, now's the perfect time to fine-tune the process, figure out what works, what doesn't work, the stuff that doesn't work, throw it out the window. But now's the perfect time to start refining that process, because in the next phase, if you're a wholesaler or a flipper, you want to be finely tuned. Part of that fine tuning is also figuring out how to market yourself. If you're not good at marketing, because you might be just finding deals left and right, well, in the next phase, deals are going to start to be kind of hard to find. So learn how to market yourself. Market to get a large amount of deal flow coming across your phone, your desk, your email. You want that deal flow to continue as the market gets more competitive in the next phase. And because you're seeing so many deals right now, it's the perfect time to figure out how to analyze deals, what works for you. Because as things get more competitive, the more creative you can get in analyzing, the quicker you can do it, you're going to have a leg up to your competitors in the next phase. So then finally, the last phase is the expansion phase. This is the what I'm going to call the growth phase, because so many people are coming in and the market is increasing faster now than ever. This is a great time for wholesalers, flippers to buy property because prices are skyrocketing. And by doing that, you may want to time this to go into the peak where you'll get max price for your properties. It's the perfect time. We talked about learning how to market yourself. Well, now's the time to really fine tune that marketing. Deals are getting harder to find, and it's going to increasingly get harder as time goes into the peak phase. And when you're in the peak phase, finding deals is going to be difficult. So the better marketer you are, the easier time you're going to have in the peak phase and still be able to find those deals and make money. Flippers in this phase are going to thrive. And to prepare for the next phase in the market, the peak phase, is really just you're able to buy those high-end flips, those ones that you're going to make a lot of money on. And you're also going to be able to ramp up your business all the way up into the peak phase where you're going to get top dollar for your stuff. So flippers, really ramp up your business at this point and take full advantage of the amount of buyers in the market now and during the peak phase. The expansion phase is when you can really start to think about maybe refinancing your properties as well, because the government and banks are wanting people to come back in the market. There's a lot more buyers. You're going to see interest rates come down. And as the phase goes on into the peak phase, the beginning of the peak phase, you're going to see your best interest rate. So now's a great time to consider refinancing higher interest loans you may have. You're also going to want to keep in mind that it's really hard to distinguish the expansion phase that goes into the peak phase. It can be often confused, and if you're ramping up your business and think you're still in the expansion phase, that turn to the recession from the peak could happen like that, and you could lose a lot of money. So be very cautious and keep an eye out for when that phase turns into the peak phase. So what's great about looking at what's happening next in the phase and the ideas I'm giving you in this video is that it's giving you a leg up to stay ahead of the game and to prepare and not be reactionary to the market. A lot of investors are reactionary. They aren't looking at what's going to happen tomorrow. Well, now's a great time to really reassess your strategy. You're going to want to dive in deeper to these. You're also going to want to look at market information, the data points, and don't just blindly trust those around you, the people that you talk to, the news. Don't blindly trust them. Look at it for yourself, because ultimately this is your money and your investments. If you got some value from this video and you liked it, please hit the like button. Subscribe down below. I really appreciate all of your support, and have a fantastic day.